So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. It was a sweet, heartwarming romance with plenty going on. So, if you love an easy-to-read romance and have a deep love for cats, then this is a must for your TBR because the cat theme does run deep with this book, all the way down to the cat-themed pastries. Hi everyone, my name is Tara Westwell and today is Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our Panic at the Book Club book of the week, which is Snowed In at the Cat Café by Rachel Rowlands. If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message. Welcome to the Cappuccino, the cozy cat cafe where you'll fall in love with every cat you meet, and maybe even one special human. When Emmy's aunt offers her a job at Cappuccino, it's a fresh start she needs after a rough year. Now, in the lead up to Christmas, Emmy can't imagine anything more perfect than pouring hot chocolate for customers and looking after the cafe's many feline residents. Needing an extra pair of hands over the holidays, Emmy's aunt hires Jared as a driver, but Emmy is immediately struck with how tall and handsome Jared is, but there's something guarded about him, not to mention his allergy to cats. Emmy could never fall for someone who couldn't be around her furry friends, and she hasn't got much time to spare anyway, until an unexpected blizzard arrives on Christmas Eve. Trapped in the cafe with Jared and the cats, Emmy discovers that Jared's been holding on to more than just one secret. What seemed like such a disastrous Christmas might not be such a catastrophe after all. So this is the spoiler-free part of the video, where first we'll discuss any spoiler-free points before moving on to a clearly marked section of the video which will contain spoilers and more specifics about the book. As usual, let's start with those chapter lengths. For me, I found that most of the chapters were a little bit too on the lengthy side. I mean, they varied massively. You would occasionally get one that's like, 8 pages, but then they could vary anywhere between 20 and 32 pages. I'm not sure if it also had something to do with the text size, but on more than one occasion I did find myself checking how long I had left of the chapter, only to discover that there were pages left, so I did find that I had to put the book down mid-chapter much more often than I'd usually like. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the book though, because I really did. I think it just made it feel like it stretched on a bit and made it feel like the pace was a lot slower than it probably was. Overall, it wasn't a particularly long book. I mean, it was less than 300 pages, but it definitely felt longer. I did actually like the dual POV. As usual, I thought that it worked really well for a romance. I do, however, usually prefer first person. I think it makes for a much more relaxing and less formal reading experience. However, this was a really well written third person, so I didn't mind the choice of perspective. However, one small pet peeve, and I know that this one doesn't bother everyone, but to me, if you're doing a dual POV or a multiple POV, then when you're changing perspectives, I do think that you should start a new chapter. I do understand on some circumstances why the author chose not to, however, I just feel like it helps with clarity and a smoother read. It wasn't a particularly difficult read. I mean, there was an awful lot going on, and I think it did a great job of painting this image of the adorable cat cafe and the lives of these two characters in a way that was really easy to read and follow. So while I don't think that my issues with the change of POV mid-chapter actually caused any issues, it is one of those pet peeves that I can't help but notice. Despite me saying that the long chapters may have made the book feel a little longer, I do also feel like the book, in a lot of ways, was really well paced. When it comes to romance, I find that authors often like to oversimplify things, like the only hook tends to be this potential love interest and maybe like one sidetrack, which is fine, but when you read like a 300 or 400 page book, sometimes it feels like nothing has happened. This book, however, has an awful lot going on. I mean, straight off the bat, you're introduced to these two characters with their own problems going on, and then fairly immediately, you're introduced to the first bit of drama, and holy hell does the drama keep coming. Before these guys have even processed one issue, there's already something else going on, and as you can imagine, with so much drama going on, this one was a slow burn. Also, just so you know, there was zero spice in this book. I mean, I think there was actually only like 2, what would you call them, like non-explicit romantic scenes in this book. I guess the primary focus was more about the potential for this new budding romance amidst all of this drama and events, if that makes sense. Like, the primary focus wasn't on the romance specifically. I rated this one 4 stars in the end because I thought it was a really sweet and wholesome read. I liked the characters and could sympathise with a lot of the issues that they were going through. Like, I think that even if you couldn't directly relate to the characters' experiences, I think that you could connect to them really easily, and you know what? Who doesn't like cats? I feel like I've been really unfairly negative towards this book, which makes no sense at all because I don't at all feel negative towards it. I just also don't want to give anything away and spoil it for anyone who might be looking to read it. I really liked the characters, the drama, and the reoccurring theme. I liked how easy it was to read, and overall I just thought it was really sweet. It felt kind of hectic in a way that real life can be sometimes. I mean, kind of calm until one week it just feels like nothing is going right. If I had to compare this to any other book, it would probably be The Pumpkin Spice Cafe or Done and Dusted, although I will say that it was a hell of a lot more PG than those two comparisons. It had zero spice, however, like these other books, it incorporated a theme really nicely throughout the book and had an open discussion about mental health and sort of healing in general. So although I wouldn't recommend those two other books to an under 18 audience, I do think that they have a similar sort of reading experience as far as the narrative and underlining story goes that isn't just romance focused. Now we've reached that part of the video where I suggest if you haven't read this book yet, go do that first, because beyond this point there'll definitely be spoilers. I honestly feel like I've already said most of what I have to say about this book. As I said, there was a lot going on, and before they'd finished dealing with one issue, another one popped up. Like, she had to deal with her drunk brother, he was grieving over the loss of his cat, she didn't know what to do with her life or her career, the fact that they got snowed in, she hurt her wrist, Salem got sick, the car accident. I'm probably missing a whole bunch, like the ex showing up, but there was plenty going on. And as I said, those are just some of the issues. It would certainly be a Christmas to remember. But I also think that they were very real and relatable issues. Like, as a fellow creative person, I know just how difficult it can be to be a freelancer, as well as knowing what you want to do with your skill set in a way that you can actually live off of. Especially if you've had someone in your life who doesn't appreciate, or I guess understand, the more creative route. Although I might not be able to directly relate to being snowed in at a cat cafe during Christmas, I can relate to the loss of a pet and how much that can hurt. I can relate to, not knowing whether or not I'm ready or it's the right time to explore a potential love interest, or, the fear of driving in terrible road conditions in bad weather. We definitely have enough of that in the UK. I mean, despite a whole bunch of crazy stuff happening, it wasn't all that crazy. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't the best week anyone's ever had, but there were very plausible issues that could happen. What I will say is that while I did like the characters, there were an odd few times where they just sort of did or said something that just seemed odd or really wrong. Like when Jared went to go meet his brother, all was fine, but then they really started picking on him about the dentist and his teeth. It just felt really unsavoury and unnecessary. Now, perhaps it's supposed to represent that teasing relationships between family members sometimes in the UK, but honestly, I think the only reason it's not considered bullying is because it's family. It's just such a toxic way of treating people, and it ends up being this vicious cycle. I was supposed to be rooting for this character, but in that moment, I wasn't exactly his number one fan. If someone, family member or not, started saying stuff like that about something that I might very well be self-conscious of, then personally I'd tell them to fuck off. When Emmy had one too many drinks and kissed Jared, he registered that she was way too drunk. He even acknowledged that it wasn't right and he was still fairly sober, he shouldn't be kissing her, and yet he carried on as though he couldn't control himself. It was just a red flag moment that gave me the ick, if I'm honest. If they made it so that he was a little bit tipsy and it was wrong because his ex was upstairs, then fair enough. But he actively acknowledged that she was too drunk, he wasn't, and she might only be kissing him because she's so drunk. You see, if it didn't go so strongly down that route, then I wouldn't be so uncomfortable. Now, don't get me wrong, I have read some dark romances, I have read worse red flags than what was in this book, but this wasn't one of those books. Personally, I just don't think it came across in the way that the author was intending. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. It was a sweet, heartwarming romance with plenty going on. So, if you love an easy-to-read romance and have a deep love for cats, then this is a must for your TBR because the cat theme does run deep with this book, all the way down to the cat-themed pastries. I know they're not equal, but I don't think they need to be. So, will I be reading any more by Rachel Rowlands? Absolutely. In fact, I think she has another book coming out next year called Cake Off at the Cat Café, which I think looks like a brilliant summer read. I believe it follows a different character that we didn't get to see all that much of in this one. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week we're discussing Finding Christmas by Schaler, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in by Saturday the 7th of December at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week will be The Gift by Freida Mcfadden, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose a genre that best suits you and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye!